Ladies and gentlemen, listen up. Life's too short to let the same mistakes keep happening over and over again. When it comes to relationships, you've got to understand something very clear: you deserve respect, honesty, and loyalty. Now, we all make mistakes and nobody's perfect, but there are some things that are just deal breakers. If someone does these things, it's time to walk away. No more chances. No more excuses. You need to value yourself more than that. Trust is the bedrock of any relationship. Without it, there is no real foundation to build on. Trust isn't something you can force, and once it's broken, it can feel like the entire structure of your relationship crumbles beneath you. It's one of the most valuable assets between two people, yet it's also one of the most fragile. Trust doesn't come easily, and it shouldn't. It takes time, consistency, and a deep level of emotional security to truly trust someone. But when it's betrayed, when it's shattered, there's often no way to repair it fully, no matter how much you might want to try. If someone breaks your trust, it's not just about a single moment of weakness or a mistake that can be forgiven. It's a sign of a much deeper issue, something fundamentally wrong in how they value you and how they treat you. Betrayal of trust takes many forms: lies, infidelity, deceit, or dishonesty in all kinds of small and large ways. And no matter the form, it leaves a wound that can never truly heal in the same way again. Sure, people can apologize, they can beg for forgiveness, they can promise to change, but the truth is, once trust is broken, it changes the entire dynamic of the relationship. When trust is betrayed, the first thing that happens is that your sense of security is shaken. You feel exposed, vulnerable, and uncertain. You start questioning everything, even the things that once felt certain. Was everything they told you a lie? Were they truly the person you thought they were? It's like walking into a room full of mirrors that distort everything you thought you understood. You become suspicious, constantly second-guessing motives and intentions, always wondering if there's something being hidden from you. That's the problem with trust. When it's broken, it creates a rift that makes it difficult to truly believe in someone again. It's hard to forget the way they made you feel, and even harder to rebuild what's been taken from you. It doesn't matter how many times they say, "I'm sorry," or "it won't happen again," those words lose their weight when actions don't back them up. And trust isn't just about avoiding betrayal. It's about knowing that your partner is consistent, that their words align with their actions. This is where the difficulty comes in. Even if they say they've changed, even if they promise they'll never betray you again, that lingering doubt remains. It eats at you. Every time they say something, you ask yourself, is that true? Every time they go out, you wonder, who are they with? Every text message, every phone call, every glance becomes a source of anxiety, because trust once lost is never regained easily. The effects of a lack of trust extend beyond just a couple. It affects your mental and emotional well-being. It robs you of peace. Constantly questioning someone you love, feeling uncertain about their intentions, creates a toxic environment that wears you down over time. You start to lose sight of who you are and what you stand for, constantly measuring yourself against their actions or lack thereof. You lose your sense of self-worth, and instead of feeling valued and appreciated, you feel like an afterthought, someone who's constantly on guard. What's even more damaging is when the person who's broken your trust shows no signs of remorse. When they act as if what they did was no big deal, or they blame you for their mistakes. That's a sign of deep disrespect. It tells you that they're not capable of taking responsibility for their actions or understanding the pain they caused. When trust is betrayed, there has to be accountability. Without it, you're left alone in your hurt, and that's a wound that can never heal. We all make mistakes, and nobody is perfect. People slip, they make bad decisions, they falter in their judgment. But when someone consistently betrays your trust, it's not just a mistake, it's a pattern. And patterns don't change without effort. When trust is repeatedly violated, it's time to ask yourself whether this is a person who genuinely cares about you, or a person who is taking advantage of your love and loyalty. If they're unwilling to put in the work to restore what they've broken, then it's not just about the betrayal anymore. It's about a lack of respect, a lack of effort, and a lack of care. If you find yourself constantly questioning whether or not you can trust someone, then the relationship is no longer healthy. Trust isn't something you should have to force or continually fight for. It should come naturally when the other person is showing you consistency, honesty, and respect. If you don't have that, then the relationship is no longer what it once was. It may be time to move on, because trying to rebuild trust is not only exhausting, it can keep you in a cycle of disappointment that never ends. Trust, once broken, may never be the same again. Sometimes that's a reality you have to accept to protect your peace. Disrespect in a relationship can take many forms, but when it's displayed publicly, it cuts even deeper. Public humiliation, whether through direct insults, belittling comments, or actions that undermine you in front of others, is not just damaging to your relationship, it attacks your dignity, your self-worth, and your sense of safety. No matter how small or subtle, the act of dissing you in front of others is a signal that they do not value or respect you the way you deserve to be valued. What makes public disrespect so powerful is the audience. When someone disrespects you in private, it's painful, but it's a situation you can handle with time and a bit of distance. You can retreat, have a conversation, and potentially move past it. But when it happens in front of others, there's a whole different dynamic at play. The audience becomes a reminder that this person is not only willing to hurt you, but they're also willing to do so in front of the people who matter to you. Whether they're friends, family, or even strangers, it creates a spectacle that you have no control over. That kind of violation is not just a betrayal of trust, but a public degradation of your worth. This kind of behavior often plays out in many forms. It could be the snide comment made during a gathering, a sarcastic remark that undermines your intelligence, or a joke that crosses the line between playful and hurtful. In more extreme cases, it could be a full-blown argument in front of others where your partner airs out personal grievances, insults you, or uses you as a punching bag for their frustration. The humiliation doesn't just come from the words, it comes from the lack of consideration and the inability to value the sanctity of your relationship in front of others. When you're disrespected publicly, it's not just your pride that takes a hit, it's your entire sense of safety and emotional security. Relationships are supposed to be places where you feel safe, where you can be yourself without fear of judgment or ridicule. But when someone disrespects you in front of others, they destroy that feeling of safety. They leave you exposed. In a way, it's like they've opened a window into the most vulnerable parts of your life and allowed others to see it. It becomes harder to look at yourself the same way. You begin to doubt your own worth, questioning whether the disrespect you've endured is something you deserve or something that's happening because of your own shortcomings. But let me tell you this, no one deserves to be disrespected like that. No one deserves to be made the butt of someone else's jokes or be belittled for the entertainment of others. Even if the disrespect is subtle, it's still damaging. A sharp look, a roll of the eyes, a comment meant to put you down, all of these things erode the respect that should exist in a partnership. And over time, these small instances build up to something much bigger. When someone publicly undermines you, they're sending a message to both you and everyone around you. They're showing the world that they don't value you enough to protect your dignity, to keep their frustrations private, or to acknowledge your worth. What this does is it creates a toxic environment where you feel like you're constantly walking on eggshells, wondering when the next disrespectful act will happen. Now, some may argue that these things are just jokes or no big deal, but let's be clear, jokes that degrade or humiliate aren't funny. They're weapons. They're ways of asserting power and control, of putting someone in their place. If your partner is using humor to degrade you, they're not just showing their lack of respect for you, they're showing their complete disregard for your feelings. Humor should bring people closer, not tear them apart. What makes this situation even worse is the reaction from the people around you. If they witness this public disrespect and do nothing, it creates an environment where this kind of behavior becomes normalized. People start to think it's okay to treat you this way, or worse, that you somehow deserve it. When no one speaks up against that kind of behavior, it validates the disrespect and allows it to continue unchecked. It gives the abuser a sense of control, knowing that they can get away with it without consequence. When you're with someone who publicly disrespects you, you have to ask yourself, what is this person trying to say? Why do they feel the need to humiliate you in front of others? Are they trying to make themselves feel superior? Are they insecure and using you as a way to bolster their own ego? The fact is, a person who truly respects you will never put you down in front of others. They will lift you up, protect you, and have your back when others are around. They understand that the sanctity of your relationship should be preserved and that their behavior reflects not just on them, but on the bond you share. Disrespecting you publicly is a line that shouldn't be crossed. It's not something that should be tolerated, no matter the circumstances. If your partner doesn't understand the importance of respecting you in front of others, it's a sign of deeper issues within the relationship. A person who publicly disrespects you doesn't value you, doesn't care about your feelings, and doesn't respect the bond you've built together. It's not love, it's manipulation, and it's time to reassess whether this is the kind of relationship you want to be in. When you're in a relationship, the expectation is that it will be a partnership, a two-way street, where both individuals support each other, meet each other's needs, and share in the emotional, physical, and mental weight of life together. But when one partner consistently puts their needs above yours, it changes the dynamic entirely. Instead of feeling like a team, you feel like an afterthought, constantly sidelined for the sake of someone else's desires. Over time, this imbalance can erode not only your sense of self-worth, but also the entire foundation of the relationship itself. At the heart of this behavior is a lack of consideration. Relationships are built on empathy, respect, and mutual care. When one person's needs are constantly prioritized over the others, it's a sign that they're either unaware of the emotional toll it's taking on you, or worse, they simply don't care. A healthy relationship isn't about one person's desires always taking precedence. It's about compromise, understanding, and making space for each other's needs, even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable. In the early stages of a relationship, you might not notice this behavior. It may appear as minor acts of selfishness, things you can overlook because you're focused on the excitement of building a connection. But as time goes on, this pattern starts to grow. The little moments where they dismiss your preferences, brush aside your feelings, or fail to consider your needs add up. What once felt like a simple disregard now feels like a consistent lack of care. It's as if their life is more important than yours, and you're expected to support them, accommodate them, and give while receiving nothing in return. This kind of behavior is especially damaging when it comes to emotional needs. If you're constantly giving your time, your patience, and your energy to your partner, but they're unwilling to do the same for you, it creates an emotional imbalance. You find yourself emotionally drained, but they continue to ask for more. They may expect you to always be there for them, to be their shoulder to cry on, to listen to their problems, but when you need the same level of support, they're too busy or unavailable. This one-sided emotional labor leaves you feeling isolated and unimportant. You start to question whether your feelings even matter to them at all. In a relationship, there should be an understanding that your partner will step up when you need them, just as you do for them. But if your needs are always secondary to theirs, it's a constant cycle of unbalanced give and take. When your partner's needs are consistently placed above yours, you may find yourself sacrificing your own happiness, desires, and well-being just to keep the peace or make them happy. Over time, you may even lose sight of your own identity as their needs take precedence over your own. You become so focused on meeting their demands that you neglect your own needs, leaving you feeling like a shadow of who you once were. This kind of selfishness can manifest in many ways. Perhaps they always expect you to change plans to accommodate their schedule, even though it means sacrificing your own. Maybe they talk over you in conversations, dominating every discussion with their thoughts and opinions without ever considering what you might need to say. Or maybe they ignore your request for time together, always putting their own hobbies or friendships before you. It might seem small at first, but this pattern creates a space where your needs are constantly dismissed or minimized. There's also the issue of taking you for granted. When one partner consistently puts their needs above yours, it's easy for them to start assuming that you'll always be there, that you'll always give, no matter how much it drains you. They don't see your sacrifices because they're so focused on their own. You become a fixture in their life, someone who's always available and ready to support them, without them ever considering whether you need the same level of care in return. This is dangerous because it fosters a relationship where one person is treated like a convenience rather than a partner. In the long run, this behavior can cause resentment. If you're constantly making sacrifices for your partner, but they never make the same effort for you, you'll begin to feel undervalued. You might start resenting them for always demanding more, for always expecting you to drop everything and put them first. This can lead to emotional distance as frustration builds up over time. You may even feel like your love and support are being taken for granted, that you're being used rather than appreciated. This kind of dynamic can also affect your mental and physical health. When you're always putting someone else's needs before your own, you leave no room for self-care. You may feel constantly fatigued, overwhelmed, or anxious because you're giving everything to someone who isn't reciprocating. In extreme cases, this imbalance can even lead to burnout, where you've exhausted yourself emotionally and mentally, leaving you with nothing left to give. In a truly healthy partnership, there's balance. Both people understand that the relationship is a give and take, where both needs are equally important and met with respect and empathy. When one partner consistently puts their needs above yours, it signals a fundamental misunderstanding of what it means to be in a relationship. A relationship should never be about one person being in charge or always having their way. It's about two people coming together to build something strong, with both individuals feeling seen, heard, and valued. If you find yourself in a relationship where your needs are consistently sidelined, it's crucial to take a step back and evaluate whether this dynamic is sustainable. No relationship should require one person to sacrifice their happiness, well-being, or identity for the sake of the other. You deserve to be with someone who understands that your needs matter just as much as theirs, someone who is willing to meet you halfway and support you in the same way you support them. When someone breaks a promise, it's like a crack in the foundation of trust that holds a relationship together. It might seem small at first, a missed appointment, a forgotten plan, but when promises are broken repeatedly, the cracks start to grow. The trust you once had begins to erode, and what was once a steady and reliable connection turns into something fragile and uncertain. A promise is a commitment, a bond, and when that bond is broken over and over again, it doesn't just affect the immediate situation, it undermines the entire fabric of your relationship. At first, when promises are broken, there might be explanations, excuses, or justifications. Maybe they had good intentions, but were too busy or something unexpected came up. You might try to be understanding, brushing it off as a mistake, thinking it won't happen again. But when this pattern repeats itself, when they continuously fail to follow through, regardless of how valid the reasons seem, it becomes clear that it's no longer just about a single lapse in judgment. It's a behavior, a mindset, and an attitude that leaves you feeling unreliable, unimportant, and constantly let down. Breaking promises is a sign of disrespect, not just to the person who made the promise, but to the relationship as a whole. When someone tells you they will do something, it creates an expectation. You begin to trust their words, to believe in their commitment, to look forward to their actions. But when those actions don't materialize, you're left with feelings of confusion, disappointment, and hurt. You start questioning the sincerity of their words and wondering whether they ever intended to keep the promise in the first place. It's not just a broken promise that causes pain. It's the realization that their actions don't match their words. Repeatedly broken promises create a toxic cycle of disappointment and doubt. Every time they let you down, it becomes harder to believe that they'll follow through next time. You begin to lower your expectations just to protect yourself from the hurt. But that's not how relationships should work. You shouldn't have to brace yourself for disappointment every time someone makes a promise. You shouldn't have to keep track of whether or not someone will actually do what they said. A healthy relationship is built on the confidence that promises will be kept, that words will be matched with actions. But when those actions continually fall short, the relationship becomes unbalanced and the emotional toll grows heavier. As this pattern continues, resentment starts to build. It's natural to feel frustrated when you've been let down time and time again. And while the person who breaks the promise may feel guilty or sorry, it doesn't undo the damage done. The emotional weight of constantly being let down begins to wear you down. You may find yourself second-guessing their intentions, wondering if you're being taken for granted or even feeling like your needs don't matter. You start asking yourself, why do they keep saying one thing and doing another? Why am I always the one left holding the bag? These thoughts only deepen the divide in the relationship, creating a rift that's difficult to repair. The real problem with broken promises is that they reflect a lack of integrity. Integrity is the cornerstone of trust. It's the foundation that ensures that when someone says they will do something, you can count on them to do it. But when promises are repeatedly broken, it signals that the person doesn't value their word enough to honor it, or worse, they don't value you enough to follow through. If someone continuously fails to meet their commitments, it becomes hard to trust them with anything else. You begin to question their reliability in every area of your relationship, even the smaller, less significant things. If they can't keep their word on the big promises, what about the small ones? It creates an environment where doubt replaces trust and uncertainty takes the place of security. This lack of reliability also causes a shift in how you view the relationship. At first, you might be forgiving, trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. But as the promises continue to break, you start to feel like you're walking on eggshells, always waiting for the next letdown. It makes you question the future of the relationship. If they can't follow through on promises now, what makes you believe they'll do so in the future? It creates a sense of instability where everything feels tentative and uncertain. You no longer feel secure in the partnership because you're left wondering if they'll come through when it matters most. Repeatedly broken promises also reflect an unhealthy imbalance in the relationship. One person is constantly putting in the effort, trying to keep things afloat, while the other is failing to deliver. It creates a sense of one-sidedness, where the person who is being let down feels as though they are the only one carrying the weight of the relationship. This imbalance only amplifies the hurt and frustration. You start to feel like your partner isn't truly invested in the relationship, that their words are empty and their actions don't match their promises. Broken promises are a direct reflection of how someone views you in the relationship. If your partner is continually breaking their promises to you, it's a sign that they either don't understand the importance of keeping their word, or worse, they don't care enough about you to make the effort. You can't continue to put your trust in someone who consistently fails to live up to their commitments. Trust is earned through consistent actions over time, and when promises are broken over and over again, it becomes clear that the trust you've built together has been compromised beyond repair. You deserve more than empty promises and half-hearted attempts. You deserve a partner who stands by their word and takes their commitment seriously. Without that, the relationship cannot thrive, it can only deteriorate. Emotional manipulation is one of the most insidious forms of control in any relationship. It often operates beneath the surface, making it difficult to recognize until the damage has already been done. Unlike physical abuse or overt forms of mistreatment, emotional manipulation can be subtle, disguised under the guise of care, love, or concern. The manipulator uses emotional tactics to undermine the other person's sense of self, gain control, and get what they want without considering the emotional cost to their partner. Over time, this kind of manipulation can leave you feeling confused, insecure, and emotionally drained, questioning your reality and your worth. The hallmark of emotional manipulation is the manipulator's ability to exploit your vulnerabilities and use them against you. They know exactly where to press to elicit guilt, fear, or self-doubt. One of the most common techniques used is guilt tripping. A manipulative person will make you feel responsible for their emotions, making you believe that if you don't meet their needs or do what they want, you're hurting them. They might say things like, "I don't know what I'd do without you," or "If you love me, you do this for me." These statements put the burden of their emotional well-being squarely on your shoulders, implying that your failure to comply is a reflection of your love or commitment. Another manipulative tactic is gaslighting, a form of psychological manipulation that causes you to question your own perceptions, memories, or even sanity. The manipulator will deny things that have happened, distort the truth, or even accuse you of being too sensitive when you express your feelings. For example, if you confront them about their actions, they might turn the tables and accuse you of overreacting, suggesting that you're imagining things or being paranoid. Over time, this can erode your sense of reality, leaving you second-guessing yourself and questioning whether you are the one at fault. One of the most dangerous aspects of emotional manipulation is that it can make you feel responsible for their happiness. A manipulative partner might use your kindness or empathy against you, making you feel that your role in the relationship is to constantly meet their emotional needs while neglecting your own. They may not offer the same emotional support in return, but they make it clear that their feelings are the priority. This can lead to a situation where you're always trying to make them happy, always adjusting your actions to please them, but never receiving the same level of care or concern. The imbalance created by this dynamic leads to feelings of inadequacy, frustration, and emotional exhaustion. Emotional manipulators often use love as a weapon to get what they want. They might withhold affection or attention as a means of punishment, using silence, distance, or indifference to control the situation. When you seek their affection or approval, they may act cold or distant, making you feel like you have to work harder to earn their love. This keeps you on edge, constantly striving to gain their favor, and perpetuates a cycle of emotional dependency. The inconsistency in their behavior creates a push-pull dynamic that confuses you and keeps you emotionally invested in the relationship, despite the toll it's taking on your mental and emotional health. One of the subtler forms of emotional manipulation is playing the victim. A manipulative person may position themselves as the one who is always hurt, misunderstood, or wronged, despite their own actions. They might deflect responsibility for their behavior by making themselves appear as the one who suffers, which shifts the focus away from their actions and places it on your need to comfort or care for them. By doing this, they create a sense of guilt in you, as though you are somehow responsible for their unhappiness. This can lead to a situation where you constantly feel like you have to fix things for them, even when they're the ones causing the problems. Emotional manipulators may also use comparisons to make you feel inferior. They might bring up past relationships or people they know who are better than you in some way, making you feel inadequate or unworthy. This tactic is designed to keep you feeling insecure and dependent on them for validation. By highlighting your perceived shortcomings, they establish a power dynamic in which you feel like you're constantly trying to prove your worth or compete for their affection, attention, or approval. One of the most damaging aspects of emotional manipulation is the gradual erosion of your self-esteem. At first, you might be unaware of the manipulation, brushing off small comments or actions as harmless, but over time, the cumulative effect wears you down. You begin to feel like you're always in the wrong, always responsible for maintaining the peace, and always trying to fix things. Your sense of self-worth starts to diminish as the manipulator convinces you that you're the problem, that you're too emotional, too demanding, or too difficult. As your confidence wanes, your ability to stand up for yourself and recognize the manipulation becomes increasingly compromised. This kind of behavior doesn't just hurt the individual being manipulated, it damages the relationship itself. A relationship built on manipulation lacks trust, honesty, and equality. The manipulator controls the narrative, leaving the other person feeling helpless, uncertain, and emotionally drained. Over time, the manipulator's tactics can create a toxic cycle where both people feel stuck. The victim feels powerless to break free, while the manipulator continues to exert control. Even when the victim recognizes the manipulation, the emotional bond and the fear of losing the relationship can make it difficult to leave. Emotional manipulation is a form of abuse that can leave deep scars, both mentally and emotionally. It's often disguised as love or concern, but in reality, it's about control. A healthy relationship should be built on mutual respect, trust, and a shared commitment to each other's well-being. When emotional manipulation is at play, those fundamental aspects are twisted and distorted, leaving one partner constantly questioning their worth and their place in the relationship. Recognizing emotional manipulation is the first step toward breaking free from it, and healing begins when you reclaim your sense of self and stop allowing someone else to dictate your emotions. When someone in a relationship is unwilling to grow or change, it can create a stagnation that is both frustrating and disheartening. Relationships at their core require growth not just as individuals, but as partners. The willingness to evolve, to learn from mistakes, and to adapt is what keeps a relationship dynamic and healthy. However, when one person refuses to grow or make any meaningful change, it creates a barrier that limits both their personal development and the development of the relationship itself. One of the most significant ways that an unwillingness to grow manifests is through resistance to feedback. Healthy relationships rely on open communication, where both partners feel safe enough to express their feelings and share concerns. However, when one person refuses to listen to constructive criticism, it becomes evident that they're not willing to learn from the relationship's challenges. They might dismiss concerns, become defensive, or shut down altogether. Instead of seeing feedback as a means to improve themselves in the relationship, they view it as an attack. This makes it impossible to address issues and find solutions, as the person is unwilling to acknowledge their own role in any problems that arise. This unwillingness to change also shows up in a refusal to take responsibility for one's actions. In a relationship, both partners are responsible for their words and behaviors, but when one person consistently refuses to own up to their mistakes, it creates a toxic cycle. They might blame external factors for their behavior, make excuses, or redirect the blame onto their partner. This lack of accountability not only hinders personal growth, but also undermines trust and respect in the relationship. Over time, the partner who is open to self-improvement may begin to feel that they are the only one making an effort to keep the relationship healthy, while the other person remains stagnant and unresponsive. When one partner refuses to grow or change, it creates a sense of emotional distance. Personal growth often involves understanding one's emotions, desires, and needs. It requires self-awareness and introspection, both of which are essential for any healthy, evolving relationship. When one person stops evolving, they may become emotionally unavailable or disconnected, unable to engage with their partner on a deeper level. They may become complacent with the status quo, uninterested in exploring new dimensions of themselves or the relationship. As a result, the person who is seeking growth may feel unheard, unseen, and even isolated. An unwillingness to change also leads to a lack of compromise. Growth requires flexibility, the ability to bend and adjust to new circumstances and perspectives. A person who is unwilling to grow often lacks the capacity to meet their partner halfway. In any relationship, there will be disagreements and differences of opinion, but the ability to find common ground is what makes the relationship thrive. If one partner is resistant to change, they become rigid in their ways, making it difficult to navigate conflicts or find solutions that work for both parties. This can lead to a sense of frustration and resentment, as one partner feels that their needs and desires are being overlooked. Another area where the unwillingness to grow is evident is in the refusal to try new things or step outside of one's comfort zone. Relationships often require both individuals to explore unfamiliar territory together, whether that's through travel, new experiences, or even trying out new hobbies. If one person consistently refuses to engage in these activities or shows no interest in broadening their horizons, it creates a sense of stagnation. The other partner may feel as if they're constantly being held back, unable to experience the fullness of life and growth because their partner is stuck in a routine. This lack of curiosity and willingness to embrace change can make the relationship feel dull and uninspiring. An unwillingness to grow or change in a relationship is a reflection of a deeper issue, a lack of commitment to the partnership. Relationships are not static, they require ongoing effort, self-reflection, and adaptation. When one person refuses to put in that effort, it becomes clear that they are not as invested in the long-term success of the relationship as their partner. They may prioritize their own comfort, convenience, or fears over the health of the relationship, which ultimately leads to an imbalance of effort and emotional energy. This imbalance can create feelings of frustration, resentment, and even hopelessness, as one partner is left to do the emotional heavy lifting while the other remains unchanging and indifferent. A refusal to grow or change can also prevent a person from being able to fully connect with their partner. Growth allows people to evolve into deeper versions of themselves, and in a healthy relationship, both individuals should be growing together. When one partner refuses to grow, they are essentially stunting their own ability to connect with the other person. They become a fixed version of themselves, unable or unwilling to meet their partner at the same level. This can lead to a sense of emotional disconnect, where the partner who is evolving feels as though they are no longer on the same wavelength. The relationship may start to feel like two people living parallel lives rather than a unified partnership. The refusal to grow or change can also manifest in a fear of facing difficult emotions or confronting past issues. Personal growth often involves dealing with unresolved trauma, fears, or negative patterns. If one partner is unwilling to address these underlying issues, they may continue to repeat the same behaviors, which keeps them trapped in the same cycles of conflict or dissatisfaction. This stagnation can make the relationship feel stuck in a loop, where it's impossible to move forward because one person refuses to engage with the deeper, more challenging aspects of themselves in the relationship. In a relationship, the willingness to grow and change is crucial for both personal fulfillment and mutual connection. Without it, a relationship can become suffocating as one partner remains stagnant while the other strives for growth. This imbalance creates a disconnect that can lead to frustration, resentment, and eventual disillusionment. Growth is not just about individual development, it's about building a life together that is flexible, adaptable, and thriving. Without the willingness to grow, the relationship will struggle to evolve, and both individuals will be left feeling unfulfilled and disconnected.